Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video, I'm going to talk about one prize, in particular, the Booker Prize. And in future videos, I hope to explore other prizes around the world as well. I want to talk about what the prizes are, how books are submitted and selected and chosen, who chooses the judges, all that sort of thing. I want to talk about the structure of those book prizes and what those book prizes are interested in, and also should we pay attention to that book prize or not? A little bit of history about it as well. That's what I hope to do in videos like this. In this video, we'll cover the following things: the reason for the Booker Prize, what books can be considered, the submission rules for publishers, how is the long list decided, how is the short list decided, how is the winner decided, how are judges selected each year, why does this prize focus on literary and not genre fiction, winning books, are they small or large publishers, is the Booker Prize still relevant, and should we care about the Booker Prize? A lot to cover in this video, so let's get right into it. So first off, what's this prize all about? What's its main purpose? They call themselves the leading literary award in the English-speaking world. Is it really? It may depend on your reading interests. It also depends on where the books are published, because what we do know is the Booker Prize is only for books that are published in English and in the UK or Ireland. They can't be published in other countries and not the UK and Ireland. It's only about that part of the world. And that's okay because other book prizes focus on their countries as well. So it's not a bad thing after all, but doesn't make them the best book prize in the world. I'm not sure about that. And one other thing they've mentioned, the prize would be for the best novel in the opinion of the judges. And the aim was to increase the reading of quality fiction and to attract the intelligent general audience. That was the aim for the award from the very onset. That's what it says, what they said about themselves. And it seems a bit odd, actually, even a bit condescending, because if they're just saying they want to attract the general intelligent audience, are they saying that readers who read genre fiction, readers who don't read the books that the judges select for the Booker Prize, they're saying that those readers aren't intelligent? But now let's look at what books can be considered. The book must be written in English and published in the UK or Ireland. The book must be published within a set period. It must be a full-length novel. While there are other prizes with different forms of writing, the Booker Prize specifically celebrates the novel form. Those criteria are pretty standard with other book prizes around the world. I mean, there's a prize in Australia that's for books published in Australia. There's a prize in the US for books published in the US. Other countries have other prizes as well for books published in those countries. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it's the submission guidelines for publishers that makes the Booker Prize maybe a little bit unbalanced. Let's explore it in more detail. Publishers are restricted in how many books they can submit for the Booker Prize. The number of submissions a publisher can make depends on their recent performance in the prize. Here's how it works. A publisher with no long-listed books in the previous 5 years can only submit one book. A publisher with 1 or 2 long-listed books in the previous 5 years can submit 2 books. A publisher with 3 or 4 long-listed books in the previous 5 years can submit 3 books. The Booker Prize suggests the reason for that is they're trying to encourage consistency in the quality of submissions. But is it really fair? Does this give big publishers who have more authors on their books an unfair advantage? It may well do, but there are more guidelines for submission. So there's this path where publishers can kind of suggest books they can't submit. So if you're a publisher and you can submit 2 books, you submit those 2 books and then you can say, well, I suggest other books, and you put them on this list. But those suggestions may not get called in to be reviewed to go on the long list, because one of the judges has to say, I want to read that book. If the judge doesn't say that about any of those books don't get selected at all. But then there's automatic selection. So if you're an author who's won previously, your book is automatically put in the book pile to be in the running for the long list. And that book doesn't add to the publisher's total. So again, if you're a big publisher who's had multiple long-listed books in the previous 5 years, you can submit your quota, and then any authors you've got who have won in previous years, their books automatically get added, and it doesn't take away from that quota you've got. So in effect, you can submit more books. So it's slightly unfair because, as we find out later on in this video, we'll look at, is it large publishers or small publishers that have the most winners over the last 10 or so years? There are a few issues that arise in the submission process for the Booker Prize. So the first one is it's unfair to small or independent publishers because they have fewer authors to choose from, and often they have fewer long-listed books in the previous 5 years. So usually they can only submit one entry. That's the first disadvantage in this process. The second thing is about what publishers submit each year, because it all depends on who the judges are. And we'll find that later on because each year it's a new panel of judges, and those judges bring with them different subjective views on what makes a good book. And publishers in the know realize that, and they may target certain books for submission in that year because they want to win, basically. That means that certain voices that may be kind of less conservative, if you will, because winning the Booker Prize is not unanimous. It's a consensus. And usually consensus is chosen because something is less challenging. It's more on the level for everybody. So certain voices that may be more divisive, that may not have a big market share in the industry, in the book world, those voices may not be selected for submission by publishers, especially small or independent publishers who only have a chance to submit one book. So there's more disadvantage in this process than many people realize. Now let's look at how is the long list decided. So we have submitted books. It's a big pile of books. It could be 170, 180. It differs from every year, but it's a big pile of books, a big number. And the judges usually have 4 or 5 months to read those books and decide on a list of maybe 12 or 13 for the long list. It doesn't have to be unanimous, but there has to be a consensus. So the judges have to talk about it, and they do. And they have to talk about it and decide together what books should make that long list of 12 or 13. The judges have time to read a huge number of books in 4 or 5 months, but not only read them, really get in detail about them in depth, really understand them, what the books are telling us, the reader. Do the judges go and read each book in detail? Anyway, they get to the long list of 12 or 13 books each year by consensus. And this is also an issue because consensus means usually people decide on consensus when something's not controversial. If it's too divisive or too controversial, are you going to reach consensus on that idea, on that book? It's hard to say you will. You may sometimes. I mean, one judging panel in 1 year may be on the lookout for voices like that or books like that. But the odds are that those type of books aren't going to reach consensus to get to a long list. So already we have different voices in books that may be submitted that aren't going to reach a long list. And then that suggests again that publishers won't submit those books for consideration for this prize. Now we know how the long list is selected. We first have submissions, which is a big pile, and then the judges have 4 or 5 months to go through all those books and decide on a list of 12 or 13 books. It's called the long list. But when do we go from the long list to the short list? Typically, the judges have around 2 months to reread those 12 or 13 long listed books. And by consensus, they have to decide what 6 books usually go on the short list. Is that 2-month time period enough time to reread those 12 or 13 books in detail? They're meant to reread them in great detail, in great depth, and discuss them. Not unanimous, consensus again. Is that enough time? Some people suggest no. Some people suggest yes, so it's just 50-50, I'd say. I've got no opinion either way on that. I think 2 months to read 12 or 13 books may be enough time. It depends on the judges, doesn't it? It depends on what they're doing in their personal lives or in their work life or whatever have you. It depends on how much time those judges have. I think it differs from judge to judge. I think some judges have said that that whole time frame to read all those books is difficult. Other judges say it's not too bad. It's okay. It's manageable. Just depends from judge to judge, I think. I think an interesting question about the short list is, does commercial appeal on these books play an important role? Officially, each judging panel says no. It's all about the merit of the work, not commercial appeal. But I think the big question on that is, this Booker Prize, like all book prizes, they're trying to select a book that's going to sell well because they want their name, they want their badge attached to books that do sell well. That's good marketing for them after all. So commercial appeal must play a role somewhere, because it'd be terrible, wouldn't it, if a winning book is out there, any book prize, doesn't matter if it's a Booker Prize or another book prize, they say, this is our top choice for this year. They put their badge on it, whatever, they say #1 Booker Prize for the year, and then it goes out onto the market with that badge, with that branding, and doesn't sell, and people don't like it. Because what would that say about a book prize if they're selecting books that people don't like? So commercial appeal has to play a role, not just in this book prize, but I think in all book prizes. And one last thing about the shortlist is the Booker Prize, and it's probably not the only prize that does this. It promotes diversity in the judging panel, which is a good thing. You want diverse voices, diverse viewpoints in a judging panel. But how does that work for selection in a shortlist? Because a shortlist has to be unanimous for some books. Of course it is for some books, they're probably unanimous. Then to make the shortlist complete, the rest of the books have to be by consensus, by majority. And that just may mean those different views, those different judges may have their voices overruled by other judges on the panel. So again, books that may be more divisive, may be considered to be smaller voices in the industry, or by voices that aren't often heard in the industry or in books in general. Maybe not selected because majority of the panel may not like them. So really, just like all book prizes out there, if you have a judging panel of a few people, is it a really fair process? How is the winner decided? Well, just like the long list and the short list, the winner is decided by consensus. Does not have to be unanimous, just has to be majority of the judging panel. So again, does consensus mean that divisive or not well-known voices, not big voices in the market, are they just not chosen because there's bigger voices on that list, or there's more conservative or more general type voices on the list? I'm not sure about that. Maybe it depends on the panel at the time. Sometimes it may depend just on what's going on in the world at the time as well, because sometimes the judges are told to look to the outside world as well. See what's going on in the outside world. How does this book speak about what's happening in the world now? And that may be a big component of how books are selected for the long list, short list, and the winning book. So to get to the winning book in all those steps, to get to the big kind of slush pile, to get to the long list and the short list and the winning book, it seems like the process is pretty much the same in every stage. Each stage has to be by either unanimous vote for a book or consensus. And each stage may push out books and voices that are more divisive or smaller voices in the industry. So it seems each stage has its pros and its cons. And who can say which works the best or which should be changed maybe in the future? So how are the judges selected each year? Sometimes the people selected to be on the judging panel can be seen as controversial, and they can cause issues. There are examples of this. I think one year we had Stella Remington on a panel. I think she was a chair of a panel maybe in 2011 or something. And it was interesting having this author chairing this book prize panel, because this author writes genre spy novels, not literary novels. So it's interesting. You have a book prize that promotes literary over commercial, and you have a chair that is more commercial fiction. Just an interesting choice, I think. But anyway, this chair, this time, Stella Remington, she announced that they would concentrate on plot, how fast a plot moves, the movement of a book, the readability of a book over anything else. And that caused controversy because the book prize rebelled against that, because they're focusing on other things. They don't care about commercialization of a story, apparently. They don't tell us that anyway. So they rebelled against Stella Remington, saying that publicly. It caused quite a controversy. So sometimes choices on the judging panel don't make sense. I mean, I think this year in the International Booker Prize, we had Beth Orton, who's a singer-songwriter. I mean, what does she know about books? And then I think one year we had Lee Child as well. And Lee Child, as many people know, writes genre action type books. Why have that author on the panel for this book prize. My feeling is they'll have these people on because they're big names. They're big names in their selective fields, and it just brings more eyes to the book prize in general. It's just a good way for the book prize to say, here we go, we've got different voices on our panel. That's why I think sometimes we have politicians, musicians, journalists, different people who may not be in the book industry or really know what makes a good book. I mean, what makes a good book anyway? It's all subjective. But to have other people on a panel who are singer-songwriters, who may be DJs. I think one year there was a DJ, who may be graphic artists, who may draw comic books, all that sort of thing. To have them on this book prize panel, is that the right thing to do? I think that's where the controversy comes from some years, when choices are made like that. And some people say it's good because of different voices, because we want voices from different walks of life, we want voices from different industries who have different ideas and concepts about what makes a story a good story. Then some people say, no, hang on, every judge should be in the book industry, should have some knowledge about the industry, whether they're a critic, a publisher, an author, what have you. They should have knowledge about the industry they're judging on. So there's two kind of camps about that. So for a big book prize that promotes itself as being the best English book prize in the world, why ignore genre fiction? Personally, I think it's up to the prize for what they want to accept. And people in the public are going to have views on that, whether it's positive or negative. So it's really up to how everybody views that book prize and their criteria. But I think it's important that people should understand what book prizes accept when they select the book of the year. It's important, I think, because book prizes actively will not accept submissions from certain publishers on certain books. So this book prize won't accept what they call genre fiction. But in today's market, what really is genre fiction and what is literary fiction? Because you have many crossovers. And I think the crossovers are increasing in number every year. Majority of readers out there, I think, want to read genre fiction. They don't want to read literary fiction. That's just my way I see the market. And I think many authors out there are just crossing those lines, blurring those lines because they want to make more money, basically. I mean, writers are out there, they're writing because it's their career. They want to make money from it. They want their whole life to be about writing. They're not writing because they just want to tell a story. Writers out there want to sell books. That's their purpose. Their publishers want to sell books. That's their purpose. Publishers will only market books they think are going to sell. It stands to reason when you have so many people out there in the whole wide world buying books. And most of the books that are being bought are genre fiction. It stands to reason that many people who write more literary works are going to blend the edges a bit and write more kind of blurred literary genre fiction. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's good and bad because those authors are kind of leaning towards what the market wants, but maybe they're also not writing what they want to write. Maybe their voices are being diluted a bit in that market, who knows. But what about the Booker Prize? Will the Booker Prize accept works that have a slight genre bent to them? Some people say no, but some books that have won have been slightly genre as well. So it's not all black and white. So I think it depends on the year. I think it depends on the judges in that year because judges change every year. That's what makes this prize interesting, because with different judges every year, it suggests that maybe different types of books may win every year. But what about winning books? Do most winning books come from large or small publishers? And remember, in the submission process, there is an imbalance that favors big publishers in how many books they can submit. So it stands to reason that the most books that win are going to be from big publishers and not small or independent publishers. And if you look at the last maybe 13, 14 years, it really shows that. So in the last 13 or 14 years of the Booker Prize, about 70% or more of winning books have been from large publishers. So large publishers have an unfair advantage from the very get-go in this prize. And maybe they do in all book prizes, I'm not sure. When I explore more book prizes in more detail, maybe I'll find that pattern. All I can say for now is with the Booker Prize, if you look at the winning books for the last 13, 14 years, over 70% of them are from large publishers. So those smaller voices, those smaller authors, aren't getting the recognition. So even though if their books are brilliant, they're not getting recognition because their publishers can only submit one book maybe every year. Is the Booker Prize still relevant today? Book prizes, I think, serve a purpose. They do promote books, sometimes books that are written very well, that may not get great commercial success or great marketing from their publishers because the publishing house may have bigger authors that demand more marketing. And publishers are there to make money. They're going to market books they think are going to sell well. And so book prizes kind of help out in that marketing in some degree. So they are important for that aspect. And some authors, they start their career in a grand scale sometimes from book prizes. Some past winners of the Booker Prize have not been known at all really until they're on that long list or short list or win the prize. So it's important in that respect. So I think the Booker Prize is still relevant for that. Whether you like those books or not, it's relevant because it's helping more people, more readers, get to those books. It's helping authors get to more readers. So it can't be a bad thing really if it works in that way. But by ignoring genre fiction, which is a huge market of the book world, does that make this book prize less relevant today? I'm not sure about that. In some ways I think yes, some ways no. I mean, the Booker Prize has its own reason for being. It accepts certain books for certain reasons. That's not going to change. So I think overall, I think this prize is still relevant, still doing the job it wants to do. So still relevant to a market in the book world. Whether that market is bigger or smaller than other markets, I don't think it really matters because the Booker Prize has been doing it for many years. It is quite successful as a book prize, and many people focus on it every year. So I think it is still relevant today. And lastly, should we care about the Booker Prize? Maybe a strange question. When you think about it, maybe not so strange after all, because there's many book prizes out there all around the world, and they're all competing in a way for attention. And should we care about them all? I mean, people are going to care about things for certain reasons. Maybe readers care about this book prize in this country more than a book prize in that country. I don't know. The reason for caring about book prizes differs for every reader, and different readers out there don't care about book prizes at all. So I think it just depends on your personal view. I think in general, people should care about book prizes. I mean, if you love books, the book prizes are, the big events in the book world. So you should care about them. They're promoting books, promoting authors. They're caring about the product you want to read. You may not want to read the books that win or are shortlisted or longlisted. You may not care about all book prizes in general, but I think book prizes are there to do a good thing for authors and publishers and the book world in general. So now we've reached the end of this video. I've taken you on kind of a long-winded tale about some of the history about the Booker Prize, their selection criteria, the selection of the judges, how they view books, all that sort of thing. And I've tried not to give too much of my personal view on the Book Prize because I don't want to do that in these videos. On my channel, I review books of all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.